Welcome, everybody. This is the second welcome. If you have missed the first welcome, please be fully welcomed.
Yeah, it's actually about my relationship with my son.
Yeah, good enough.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? I said it, and I could tell right away it wasn't right. Yes, it's about you and your son, and that's all. That's fine. That's all the content we need.
Yeah.
And there it is, and it's doing something in here about that. It's
Yeah.
bringing that to us.
Yeah. There's like the holding tight and letting go happening.
Something called holding tight and letting go. What alternately?
Torn between those two.
Oh, torn between holding tight and letting go.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I want to say it back in the spirit of allowing it to be between. It doesn't have to decide right away. It is between. There is a place called between. Between holding on and letting go.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just let it be between.
Yeah, there's something about letting it be that.
Yeah, and I'll say it over again because then it has more time. Letting it be is right. Something about letting it be was right. It is between. It's torn between.
Mm-hmm.
And letting it be between is momentarily right, somehow. Momentarily right to say, let it be between. Because it is between.
It is between. And there's less have to energy going in each place, just being.
Just being between is less have to energy, less torn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I could stand being here for a few minutes, or whatever comes next can come from it. I'm glad it's less torn.
So there's the acceptance and the less torn, but then I'm just hearing the voice of.
Oh, it needs something further. It's not good enough to say, oh, accept it. That's fine, except it needs something more. And you were saying what? And I interrupted you maybe. You were saying...
There's a voice in me that just really wants to be heard about being a mother, being connected to him in a deeper way. So really a lot of pain.
So there's pain where you're not connected as deep as you think would be right, as a mother should be, something like that, or as it wants to be, not as connected.
I'm not sure if it should or want, but
Right.
there's a pull there.
There's a
to
pull
be
to
heard.
connect.
Pull to connect.
There's
yeah.
something that really would scream loudly if we didn't listen. It wants to say, it wants to connect. Well, I don't know if it wants, but it's something about connected. Notice me backpedaling from the phrasing. Connected is right. What I stuck in there isn't. It wants to be, we don't know that. It's just something about connected is very urgent. No? What's right to say?
I'm not sure if it's urgent, but it really wants to be heard.
It really wants to be heard. That's now, you see.
Yeah.
When you don't pick it up, they repeat it until you do. Yes, you said that originally. It wants to be heard.
I don't know if it's his voice or my voice. But
We
it's
don't
like a
know who
desire
is it.
for
Something wants to be heard. A
desire
desire.
to understand each other, to connect, to really open our hearts to each
Right,
other.
and something is welling up in you as you say that, and you something almost crying about it wants so much to be understanding mutually, heard mutually. Mute, something mute both ways?
Yeah, like both of us wanting.
Yeah, yeah. Very
and not knowing how
strong.
to make it happen.
It wants that kind of connection,
Yeah.
and it doesn't know how to make it happen.
Right.
So we say again, both of these things. It really, really, really wants that connection. Connected understanding, connected hearing,
Yeah.
and it doesn't know how to do that, how to make that.
Yeah, so it's
Happen.
that lost place that I'm speaking from.
There's loss, pain of loss. There's a lot of, you said the word, yeah, there's a lot of pain and loss.
Yeah. And there's a part of me that just wants to rush right over here and say, but that's okay, just be with the confusion and the lost sense and just,
So
See what
something
comes
would
from
quick
there.
try to fix it because it's hard to stand, I guess.
yeah.
Maybe. Maybe that thing has a point too, but right here, you're trying to say there's a lot of pain and loss, and it's hard to stay with it, to stand it, to...
Yeah, because I just want full
Yeah.
expression of my love and my care for him.
Yeah. So there's a lot of love and care here that feels like it can't be heard, seen, expressed. There's a lot of love and care there that's jumping up and down some way because it can't get out, it can't, not quite right. That's okay, you're trying to fix what I said. There's a lot of loving care, and it hurts there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's asked me not to talk to him,
Yeah.
and there's a part of me that really wants to honor that and trust. that it's coming from
yeah.
a place of discovery or choice, and then there's the other part of me that just really wants to go after it.
So partly it wants to, it doesn't know, right? It wants to think this is part of discovery, part of room for him to grow, part of some kind of something right about it.
Yeah.
It wants to believe that, and then part of it doesn't believe that,
There's
or
both of those things happening. They're both true.
okay, they're both true. So it is true.
It is true I want to go after him.
Yeah, for sure.
It is true.
And it's
I
also
want to give him
true.
space.
Yeah. That you want to give him space is true. And that you want to go after him is also true. Sure.
Both of those are true.
Sure. There we are. Let me just say that again so we don't have to go one way or the other for at least a minute. There is very, very, very strongly both of them. What
Yeah.
wants to give him space is it's really true that you want to give him space.
Yeah.
And it's also really true that something wants to go after him.
Yeah. And what's coming up now is a little, it feels fresh. That if I were to really go after him, it would be to honor his wishes, to really say yes to what he's asking for.
There is a going after which would do what he's asking. Is that right?
There's a way of going after.
There's a
that
way,
honors.
Okay, so here
His request.
opens something open.
Yeah.
There is a way that would honor what he's asking, and still it would be a kind of going after him.
Yeah, meeting him in this place of
Meeting him in the place of you want to be left to yourself, or meeting him in this place of you want to discover yourself without me, or is that right? Am I saying it It's a direction.
Yeah, there's something about discover yourself without me.
No, no, that's my words. Throw them
I
out.
know, but
It's a good example.
something about it, feels a little painful, even though it's your words.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to stay with what the feeling is.
Yes, yes.
And notice that there's a leaning into that and getting that that could be really valuable for him to find his way without me,
Yes.
even though it might be painful for me.
Yes, yes, yes. Something is moving there.
Yeah.
Something is moving there. It's saying, well, sure, that could be painful for you, but it could be all right. It could be good. It could be, there's something's making a distinction. Yes, for you, is that right? Something like that.
Yeah, there's something about opening to him finding his way.
There's
without
something
me.
about
Something opening
opening,
me, like
opening you.
really holding him differently.
Yes, yes, uh-huh. Yes. So
Some softening happening.
that's fresh. That's happening now.
Yeah.
That, oh, the pain in yourself is one thing, and actually letting him, or honoring his wanting to find himself without you may hurt the you, but it also feels like it's possible.
Like it has some possibilities.
It has
Like
some
something opening
possibilities.
for him.
Something
That
is
could in
open.
turn open me. I don't know what it would look like, but
Yeah,
could
something
just
could open there.
honor his request,
Yes.
honor his desire.
Honor his
and really
request.
be with the power of why he's making this choice.
Yes. Yes.
And if I could find a little more peace with it.
You
with
might be
some-
able to be with that request, to be with honoring that request. And there's a little more peace coming in just on that possibility. Oh, I might be able to honor that request
Yeah.
and not be limited by the pain.
I think we have it pretty much. We could stop here. The subject, that the way that I put it, was working with paradox. And paradox is a very interesting and promising concept for Gendlin, because paradox can be seen as a kind of illogical mystery. This is true and this is true, and they can't both be true. It doesn't make sense. For Jean, paradox always is an invitation, but the invitation means to go beneath the realm of logic, beneath the explicit realm, to the implicit, where it's more than logical. So there are always more complexity and more possibilities that can come out of a paradox. And that's so part of Jean. And it's very, very interesting to me that when the client is working with this stuck place of being torn between this and that, and we have two instances of it, that he can so easily help the session flow into the more than this and that. Jean would say that that's implicitly understood by the client, and not that he's suggesting it. But I think that that's also an either or. Is it him suggesting it, or is it the client, it's the us, it's the interaction that can go in that place. And I was very eager to have us discuss this because it's so practically helpful in practice to find the between. And you notice that at the very beginning, he says, it's this and this. She says, torn between. He says, oh, there's a place called between. And that sets up the whole session in a way. There's a place called between. It's like in other places he says that the therapist makes a something, that there's a something there, and we're looking at the something that hasn't been made yet, that's in process. So paradox is a philosophical exploration, but we can also think of the either or as polarization, as black and white thinking. Polarization, I think many of us feel is the danger in the world, that we have to find a way as a species to transcend polarization. So there are some very big things at stake here to understand how we can do that. And we can't do it logically. My friend Doris Brothers wrote a book called The Psychoanalysis of Uncertainty. And she talks in this book about how in trauma or distress, when we're overwhelmed, our tendency is to collapse all of the complexity and simplify it into a this or this, right? Either we accept these conditions or we bomb, or it's this or it's this. And that, I think, goes into this same realm of seeing the either orness as a kind of fight or flight, as a kind of instinct when we're overwhelmed. And then to find the opening, we have to go to that implicit place. And that's what Jean is helping these clients to do. So in this first one, she's torn between going after her son and honoring his request for her not to contact him. So how did they get from there to this between place? There were many times when he's very tentative and it wants to, it has to, connect like a mother. And we don't know whether it wants to or has to, leaving a lot of space. Did you notice in that vein when he says to honor him, your son, to explore without you? And she's sort of shocked by that because she hasn't come to that stark place. Oh, he wants to be without you. And then Jean says, no, as he always does, right? In the video with the I can't stand reflection, he goes, something like that. And she picks up on it. And she says, no, don't throw it out. There's something about that. And it was like his just taking that stark reality and putting it into words helped her to digest it. And it was helpful. It was helpful in that he said it and she could hear it. And with him, he was being very close with her, you know, following moment by moment. She was able to say, well, it is without me. The reflecting isn't just reflecting. When reflecting is just reflecting, it's not reflecting in the way that Jean is talking about. He's always reflecting the implicit that isn't quite there yet. That's why there's so many revisions. It wants, it needs, because he's reflecting from this implicit place in himself. Reflection is a way of interpreting. And there are times when the reflection is an interpretation, but it's an interpretation in this way, like, is this right? And it is more spacious than, well, than a traditional interpretation. A reflection also can be a question. It can be an asking into. It can be many things. Notice also his attitude in it. There's an attitude in the way that he's being with her. An attitude of, we talk about therapy being non-judgmental, but often we use that term very lightly, like you don't clobber the client over the head and say, you're an asshole. But actually non-judgmental is something much more subtle. It's not evaluative. And he's keeping this space open. It's like he's not taking sides. Should she honor her son or should she go after him? Although you do get the feeling that he's very happy that she's not going to go after him in the original way of pursuing him, but that she found a new way. That's the kernel, right? That's the crux of his way of working with either or. This is true and this is true. And to have them both, it's also a kind of healing of dissociation, right? You know, because in dissociation, we can only really have one, and then we know the other one, but we can't feel the other one. But to really feel the truth of two opposing things invites this third thing. Yes, he's inviting her. And I think also he's supporting her moment by moment. And I think that's an important part of it relationally. That it's a big move, a big step to go from either or to the new place, the third. In psychoanalysis, there's a lot of talk about the third. But if Doris, if we take into account what Doris Brothers says, and that the either orness is a kind of collapse into simplicity when we're overwhelmed, it's a big step to allow the complexity of what's beyond the either or. And Jane is very tender and, you know, just like delicately, like with a little child, you know, just getting up from having fallen down and trying to walk again or something, just delicately being with her and leading and following. That's a kind of interesting thing to me also, that he's both leading and following. And would a traditional person-centered therapist think he was leading too much? I don't know. But it's the interaction, it's the dance where leading and following are together. Conflict is that being torn between this and this, and conflict in people is this person versus this person. Conflict in communities, in countries, in the world is this or this. And it's not the between. I think he uses the word between, which is lovely here because she says she's torn between. But the between isn't a compromise. And this is a very important point. It's not like, well, I'll pursue him by email, but I won't show up at his door or something like that. It's not a compromise. And often we think that it's going to be a watered down giving in or something. But the third, the between, is a different thing. So I think of it not as a line and then you meet in the middle. I think of it as a triangle where you meet in this. There's a Rumi poem about there's a field beyond right and wrong. I'll meet you there. And that's that field where we could meet. That's beyond the either or.
Like a new creation, like something
Yeah.
new.
Yes. And she says that. She says, oh, there's something fresh. I got this insight while you were talking, Stephen. And I've always sort of wondered about how Jean can be so relaxed with the pause, the silence. And he's just so completely relaxed. And sometimes I get anxious, like, is the person stuck or are they going inside, something like that. But Jean is resonating with the conversation that's going on within the person. He feels himself as part of that. So he isn't at all anxious or antsy or anything. And then when the next thing comes, he's ready for it because he's been part of this silence, which is sort of interesting to me. I never thought of that before. Yes. In the spirit of letting it be between. It is between, and there's a place called between. I love that. A place called between. And that saying back, Ami, isn't a reflection to clarify as much as, and reflection is used this way very often for Gendlin. It's a resting place so that then something could emerge from there. Let's just be in this between so something can come from there. It's a kind of landing. Let's land there for a bit. And he says, I could be here for a few minutes as an invitation. I'm noticing that he doesn't guide her and say, maybe you can stay with that, like a traditional focusing intervention, like, can you stay with that for a minute or something like that. But I could stand to be here. And that's so much more welcoming because it's not telling her what to do. And it's not demanding something. It's just saying, I could, it's a suggestion like, well, I could eat hamburgers for dinner if you want, something like that. There are two themes in this demo, and they are both so important. Important in terms of the individual, important in terms of couples, important in terms of groups, important in terms of the world. The one theme is what we've been talking about of complexification and being able to be between either or. And I won't say more about that right now, but we'll see how Jean navigates that in this clip. But the other theme here is the content, which is about aggression. And I think many of you know Kohut's very radical, in the 70s, very radical theory that sort of revolutionized psychoanalysis, at least for some people. Some people really hated his theories. But he, I think, was the very first, for me at least, to talk about aggression as narcissistic rage. And he made a distinction between anger and narcissistic rage. Anger is something that informs us. It's a feeling that informs us that something isn't okay, that and that we have to do something. Even if what we do is take some breaths or something. Narcissistic rage for Kohut was what he called a disintegration byproduct. Are you familiar with that? Raise your hand if you're familiar with his theories about that. Yeah. A few of you are and a few of you aren't. So I can stand to repeat it. I sound like Jean. I could stand to be here for a minute. I find this theory so revolutionary now and unknown or unassimilated or undiscussed, that a disintegration byproduct is that the person seems big and strong and terrifying and dangerous, and the person may be dangerous, but the person that is in a narcissistic rage is falling apart inside and desperately trying to get the self back together, desperately trying to consolidate a fragmented self, in Kohut's language. And so the rage is this spewing, like Rumpelstiltskin, if you know that fairy tale, of just desperately trying to be powerful and threatening to the other as a way of feeling a sense of self that they've lost, a sense of dignity, a sense of integrity that they've lost. And Kohut actually felt that the Nazis' attack on the Jews and other people was an expression of narcissistic rage. He considered it narcissistic rage, endless hatred and lust for revenge. I actually had a client that kept going over the same grievance she had again and again and again, and nothing seemed to help. And I said to her, it's almost like an endless hatred you feel and a lust for revenge. Quoting Kohut, she said, yes, exactly. That's how it feels. And I sort of smiled to myself because, here I am quoting Kohut to her. Maybe we could have a couple of quotes from Kohut that you might, Katerina has. Are you ready with those quotes, Katerina?
Yes, man is in danger. He may be on the verge of destroying himself. He cannot control his cruelty toward his fellow man. He appears to be forced to respond to differences of opinion or conflicts of interest in one mode only, through the mobilization of his readiness to fight and to destroy. The mere otherness of other frightens and disgusts him, and so powerfully impelling is the influence of these feelings on him that he would rather risk total destruction than bear the burden that an attitude of tolerance toward the demands of his fellow men and the temporary renunciation of his own demands, of his own pride, would impose upon him.
Let's take that in for a minute. Going now from the small picture of the individual who is in a conflict with her husband and this huge issue of humankind destroying itself. Now let's read the second quote.
If we wish to affirm that this effort is indeed worthwhile, then we must demonstrate that its therapeutic and scientific goals carry a significance that transcends the fate of the single person and the knowledge obtained about psychology of the individual. We must show, in other words, that psychoanalysis makes a contribution to the activation of wholesome social, cultural, and historical effects, which may influence the future of not only a handful of individuals, but of large groups, whole layers of society, and, yes, even of mankind as a whole.
Thank you, Katerina. Thank you, Jim. I wanted to share those quotes with you because I wanted for us to pay attention to the parallels of these big ideas about narcissistic rage, and really this micro experience in this demo where the subject, the demonstratee is describing exactly what Kohut is talking about. And she is able to move through it to a completely other place. And I don't know what the implications are that Kohut wants us to see for larger and larger systems, but I think it's very enlightening to see exactly how it comes to a person that they're what that narcissistic rage feels like. So when we say, well, maybe the Nazis were suffering from narcissistic rage, it seems like this horrible, horrible thing. But all of us experience narcissistic rage. It's a very, very human thing. And so we're showing this. So we want to see what is Jean's attitude toward her narcissistic rage. She's torn between loving her partner, whoever it is, she doesn't say who it is in this, and fighting and not accepting his behavior when he's mean to her. So let's look at it now, and then we'll make our other points from there. Notice how Jean doesn't get caught in the content of what did he say to you, and what did you say to him? And that would be a different kind of therapy than Jean does. He wants to know her experience. She starts out by saying that she loses her loving when her husband does whatever it is that he does to her, is mean to her. And she wishes that she didn't have to lose her loving. And Jean says to her, well, somebody could both have their loving and not lose it, even when something not nice happens. But not you. You can't do that yet. Right? And he holds out this yet. Okay, so let's see where they go from there.
Do something.
So we can hear from that is a strong urge that says, you're wrong, I'm right, or I'm fighting back, or let that come in more. It's a good energy in itself in some way. I know you don't like it, but okay, I got to.
Yeah, because it's a lot of power.
I got to smile for that.
To,
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
right, I'm
Amen.
right, you're wrong.
Let's have that. Yeah, let's have that power, and then we can vary how it comes or something, right? Because there's a smile with it. It's, yeah, well, come on. don't put it all away. Right. There might be a better thing to say or something, but it's not a.
But I know it's like I want a different way.
Oh yeah, you don't want to just act it out. You don't want to just pour it out or dump it or whatever. But there's something right about the energy. Then whatever's a better way will be with that. It won't be without that.
Right. So what I heard you say is that to hold my power.
Yeah.
Power and
Yeah,
energy,
and then ask for what would I like better than to dump it or to.
Yeah. How can I stay strong and powerful?
Yeah, yeah.
And not be vicious. So go into that.
Yeah, how can you be strong and powerful and still what? I don't know.
So
Not go into that, yeah.
right,
But
be
strong and powerful.
without acting out, or without. Yeah, just gonna be clear that I don't like this.
Yeah, okay. I don't like this.
I feel my body
It's
react,
getting,
but
yeah.
I
I'm just going to keep saying back.
How do I
What's
get them in the moment?
I don't like this. But then there's a fear that you'll just slide into a. Is that the fear?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's so easy somehow. To go
Uh-huh.
into that. What came when I said that maybe this is not going to be believable, or will this be strong enough?
Yeah, to hold the wave of anger that comes there, or whatever that's called, that's right there, and it says, no, this isn't enough, this isn't going to work.
This is not,
Right.
I'm not there yet.
And what will happen?
It was a big
Or is it
pause.
what is it? It says we don't have an answer, but what is it? Is it a fear? Is it a too angry? What is down in there?
So much anger at that moment.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
hurt, but
Really,
anger.
right. Really anger, and then hurt and anger sort of.
Yeah, it comes with such a sense of being wronged.
Yeah, you didn't deserve this. This was wrong. This shouldn't happen. You're being wrongly something, attacked, punished, something.
When I was in this place, a part of me came and I don't know if it was a reaction to how I thought people would see me, maybe a little bit, but also like an inner place. I'm not that, I don't know, I felt like a martyr or like a victim. I'm a victim. I'm not such a victim in general or in
So you
relationships.
wouldn't
I don't
like,
feel like, I
right?
don't
You
feel like
wouldn't like the impression that you're just a suffering.
right. Well,
Passive
outside, but I'm
victim.
feeling it. I'm saying it also to myself
Yeah,
that
it's- yeah.
maybe it's suddenly felt. I felt it in me, like, oh, I'm a victim. I don't know.
So you,
Um,
yeah. So you,
it's like so I'm kind of almost wondering, like, what?
yeah. You got to a further spot where you're looking at your reaction. You're saying, right? Saying, how come I sound like that? I don't really feel like a victim or like a passive that gets run over. That's not
Right.
really me, and yet I sound like that. What is that? Why does it feel like that? Or where does
Right.
that come from? You got to a wider you.
What?
You got to a wider sense of yourself just now. You're saying,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'm not really just that
Right.
victimized, unfairly treated person.
Yeah, but I think that reaction comes from that place of feeling a victim.
Yeah, yeah. Does that go way back in your experience? Is that from long ago? Or
Yeah. Very different.
but
Very
you are,
different dynamics.
but you are. So
going
it's yeah. It could connect, but this is. But you're now very much saying yes. That makes me feel like a victim, but that's not my general way of being.
being. In those moments, I think it takes
Yeah,
me to that
yeah.
place.
Okay. Now I didn't show you the whole beginning part there where she's talking about wanting to find a better way than she describes being being very I don't remember the word she uses. It isn't cruel, but uh, nasty to the other, and not wanting to do that, but not wanting to have to be feeling so put upon and done to by the other. It's such a common, I think all of us have experienced that, right? Wanting to blast the other person and say, you're wrong, I'm right. How dare you, whatever. You did this and this and this. And she describes all of that. But since I didn't want to make it too long, I didn't play you all of that. So what did you notice about her experience of what I'm calling narcissistic rage, a mini version of it, of how it transformed, of getting beyond the either or of fighting or being a victim? Jean is so not moralistic you wouldn't expect him to say, when she's saying she's really nasty, oh, there's some good energy in that. And deeply moral, uh, in the sense of saying, well, yeah, that got a smile. And then he knows that it's right because it got a smile, it got energy, right? And he says, well, you might not like doing it that way, but that energy is really important. That spunkiness, that I'm not going to be run over. That seems like it's a turning point. There was a lot more in the video about her saying, I don't know where to go from here, and I wish you could tell me. And Jean says, oh, I wish so too. Wouldn't it be nice? But then she says, I don't want this, and I don't want this. And Jean says, well, it seems like you already have this other thing of something that's different than this and different than this. So we go back and look at those parts. He sort of really introduced the yes in a way. I mean, when that was not from what she said, when he said, well, there's some good energy in that, because it was no to this and no to this. And then he picked up that there was something organically protective in her aggression. It was interesting to me that he was asking her, as you say, Natty, explicitly, what's in the way, basically, of finding this other way of being. And she says, almost as an aside, that she doesn't want people to see her as a victim. And that could be passed over very, very easily. But that becomes the door that opens the whole thing when she says she's not a victim. And of course, Jean is delighted with that little movement, that little step. It says, you have a wider sense of yourself there. And she makes him repeat it. She doesn't even get it at first, this wider sense of herself. And it occurred to me that that's what every session is, really trying to help the person have a wider experience of themselves. That atmosphere of being open to what's trying to emerge, even if it's ugly, if it seems ugly. It also struck me that that Jean is almost referencing Carl Rogers, and Carl Rogers talks about how the sense of self, developing a sense of self, is developing the ability to have what he called the locus of evaluation in yourself. It's not out there. This is right, this is wrong in some written in some book, but that it's within you. And he keeps using the language of, you don't like this. It's not a nice place. It's not a happy place. It's ugly. And the language of the personal like and not like, rather than the universal, this isn't good. And that makes an atmosphere where she can be open to that experience in herself. Yeah, does somebody else want to respond to that? How do we know that we're getting, with these little tiny steps that Jean does, how do we know that we're getting to a better place? In the movies, we know that you're getting to a better place if you cry and have a breakthrough and have a memory that has been repressed of some trauma, and maybe sleep with your therapist, like in what was that movie? In different theories, maybe you would know different ways, but in terms of focusing oriented therapy, how do you know? Well, I think what she says, actually both of them, the first person says, there's something fresh here, and her face lights up. And the other one too, when Jean says, that there's some good energy in that, her face lights up. You could see in her body this different energy. Now you might say, well, who knows if that's going to last? When she talks to her husband again, maybe she'll blast him. But and that may be true, but that wider sense of self that Jean notices and reflects back to her is an experience. It doesn't mean that you won't have any troubles ever again and you live a happily ever after, but it's an experience of oneself in a wider way. And then she has this recognition that her aggression is tied with this feeling of being a victim. That's quite a big step. I mean, I think if we had time, and maybe we will have time, to focus on for ourselves, what brings that feeling of being a victim, where it goes. All of us have that. But that's a big movement in her. And that, what you're saying, Liz, is exactly what Kohut was saying, that the endless hatred and lust for revenge, so strong that it's worth it to die for it, because there's some kind of implicit feeling that then if we die for that and kill all the other people, that we'll be getting back something, a sense of, it's a good question. In the circles that I've been in psychoanalysis, there's a big emphasis on getting to the rage in the relationship, and that unless you have rage at you as the therapist in the relationship, you're not really getting to the rage. And that isn't the way that Gendlin thinks about it, or that Kohut thinks about it. If you think about the rage as a disintegration byproduct, then you don't really want, you don't seek having the rage. I mean, it may, very often it will be in the relationship, and then you want to welcome it. But it doesn't have to be in the relationship in order to get to it in a Gendlinian or Kohutian kind of therapy. But we're getting to some of these nitty-gritty kind of questions, right? Where is the blood?
Marina's raising her hand.
So I'm so glad you asked the more basic question, because it's very confusing the way people use terms. People often use terms to distinguish themselves from other schools, and it's very, very confusing. Like intersubjectivity can mean two very different things. But Koha took the word narcissism from the idea of an injury to the self, the narcissistic needs, or the needs of the self, and it has a pejorative connotation. And what was confusing but revolutionary for Kohut was if he said, well, what if we don't think of that as pejorative, but we need a sense of self, and that's at the core of well-being, is a sense of self, and that the things that we think of as pathology are our attempts to have what we need, the emotional nutrients to have a sense of self, right? So forget that term, narcissistic rage, because it will just be confusing. And we could just say rage, right? It's the idea of feeling a sense of what she said. She feels, how did she put it? It was a wonderful way, not done to, she feels wronged. That feeling of being wronged. And the feeling that comes with it is, what's wrong with me that I'm wronged? I must be a blah, 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 blah. I must be a victim. I must be a creep. I must be so many people that feel wronged in a romantic relationship, that feel like, oh, I'm a loser if I'm wronged. And then they want to get back at the other person, of course, because that's a way of righting the wrong. You know, the gangs that kill people, and then the other gang has to kill one of their people, and you know, all of that. But in this demo with Gene, he's saying there's some good energy in the rage, but we don't want to just act it out, right? And when she has that affirmation of there's some good energy in this instinct to protect yourself, to get yourself back, that Liz might feel is very nicey nice, then that frees her to feel, to own the part of her that experiences herself as a victim, but to feel strong, to recognize, I'm not a victim, and that she could be less aggressive knowing that she's strong. What did I answer your question, or was there? Oh, you asked, how do we support ourselves? That's such an important question.
In this particular style.
Yeah. Well, we could see how Gene was supporting himself. You know, his deep faith that's borne out again and again and again in very pragmatic ways in the moment. And this answers your question too, Liz. It's not faith in some abstract way, but faith that you see, if I stay here, then it opens. If I stay, you know, it's moment by moment, seeing that if I deeply listen, that something is going to carry forward. So we don't have to take anything on faith the way I'm thinking about in my early Gestalt training, and this is also something you were talking about, Liz. We would have batakas, these bats, and we would kneel down and beat our mothers to death. And we would have faith that you have to kill off the bad mother, and then you could be free and you could be open to the world without the oppression of this primal mother. but they grew back somehow. I don't know how. We killed them. we and I could feel when I did that, I could feel the rage in my body as I would be killing my mother. And the people that didn't kill their mothers, we thought, oh, well, they'll never get better. But I don't know. Mothers really have a very strong hold on us. But in focusing, it's borne out moment by moment by moment. So it's not you do a whole treatment and then you see if it succeeds or fails. You do 10 minutes and you see if it is succeeding in a step or not. When you say it's more primitive, what I get is it's more instinctual. It's more
Yes, yes.
the body in a way. It's more urgent, and its rage is not thought out. Although you could obsess about it, but that isn't the real thinking. So rage is on this implicit level. It's not really on an adult thought out level, but it may be portrayed that way, like it's very logical that I kill this person because blah 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 blah, or that I kill myself, as Liz pointed out. The difference between rage and anger in Kohut's terms is that rage is not that it's bigger or more extreme than anger. It could be very big or very small, but rage is an injury to the self that feels like it needs an immediate counter to be able to esteem ourselves again. So I could be in a narcissistic rage at my computer when I try to learn this, and I've gotten it all set up, and I have a big workshop or something, and it doesn't work. It's like an injury to my self-esteem, and I feel like this computer is a piece of junk, and how dare. And then I liked it better when we didn't have, which I don't in many ways. Do you see what I mean? That it's the function of it that makes the difference. Whereas anger would be, oh, I see, I'm really angry at so-and-so, and I didn't like what they did. And I have to find a way to tell them that, or prevent that from happening again, or something. The rage is very, when you say primitive, it's like the child level or something. That idea that the rage is anything, the meaning of anything is in the response it elicits, and rage elicits rage in another person. But in therapy, we want it to not elicit the rage of the therapist. But if the therapist receives it as some self-protective energy that is wounded and needs healing, then the rage is different, because it's in the interaction, and that's why therapy is different than a regular relationship, or even a focusing partnership, because we're holding it in a different way. One thing I forgot to say that I keep thinking of is that I often say that focusing oriented therapy and relational psychoanalysis are two sides of the coin for me. They go together. And in focusing oriented therapy, we pay attention to the micro movements, the tiny steps of change and opening. And in psychoanalysis, we pay attention to the whole relationship, the story of the relationship, and how it opens or gets stuck, or the enactments, or the transferences, and all of that. And we need both. We need the whole thing, and we need the moments, because the moments orient me so that I can be sturdy enough to look at the whole thing maybe in a different way when I get stuck in my transferences or countertransferences or stuff like that. Or I don't even know, that when the couple, I'll relationalize it, gets stuck in their one interaction that the two people are, and we're representing different things to each other. I have a memory that has come back to me several times recently. It was a memory of being a little girl, maybe even in second grade or something. And there was a Braille class, and these two kindergarten children were brought in to school, and who were totally blind, and they were in the hall, didn't know each other very well, and they were slapping each other in the face. One would slap the other would slap the other, and they were just standing there slapping each other in the face. And I was horrified. I think I was maybe even the monitor or something. I don't remember my role in it. But that sort of reminds me of that, Stephen, that you and the client were both blind and wanted contact with the way, even as a small child, I recognized that this was a wanting contact, that they didn't have contact with other children, and that this was somehow important or something. But anyway, I was glad that I had that memory when you were speaking, because I made some sense of it.